Hello, welcome to Unbearable. This is episode 9, if I'm counting correctly. Today, we're going to talk about an article I read over on. Let me put it on screen for you first. An article I read over on. Where are we here? Okay. On metal injection. This is Chris Adler names his top 3 metal albums of all time. Okay. So Chris Adler is a drummer. He's obviously Lamb of God, Firstborn, with two bands here. But Lamb of God, obviously, everyone's going to know him from. They're a really great band. So I read through his article, and first we'll talk about what he said, his albums, and he mentioned 3 bands, Metallica, Meshuggah, and Queensryche. So let's, no, I'm sorry, Megadeth, Meshuggah, and Queensryche. So we'll do his 3 albums, a little discussion, and then we'll talk about what my 3 albums are. That's mine, right? So Peace Cells came out in 1984, I want to say. Off the top of my head, I'm just not remembering exactly. And let me first note, I'm not. I discovered Megadeth like years later, even though I was a Metallica fan since I was, I don't know, like 7 or something when I first heard them. I'll get to that in a minute. When I heard Dave Mustaine had been replaced, I kind of honestly thought he died. I had no idea, and then, I think around 1990 or something like that, when that Sweating Bullets video came out on MTV, that's when I was like, oh shit, that's Dave Mustaine. He's not dead, And in the internet age, which we all live in now, obviously we'd know right away if someone passed, or we could know what happened to Dave Mustaine. But back then, when you're a kid living in the city, unless you could afford the $5 metal magazine every month, you're not really going to ever know, or Rolling Stone magazine, which is even more expensive back then. And what your mama, you're not really going to be able to afford that to keep up with the latest news. So, predominantly, you discovered your music by virtue of listening to what your older relatives listened to and what you heard on the radio. And now onto Peace Cells. Again, I discovered the album much later. And even discovered Megadeth much later. And, they're okay to listen to. I don't change them on the radio. But something about their sound just a little off to my ear. I'm not saying they're bad. They're a great band. David's a great writer and all that. But the sound Megadeth puts out on most of their songs seems like it's missing something. They just never stuck them in. I recognize their talent, but to me it's a bit off. The next album he mentioned is Destroy Erase by Meshuggah. It's a sort of death metal type of music, or heavy thrash, whatever you want to consider that sound. I'm sure now there's like a 6-syllable word, like anti-neo progressive, death thrash submetal or whatever But back then it was basically all thrash, speed, death, or regular metal. And again, whenever Meshuggah would come on the radio, which back in the 80s and early 90s meant either WSOU, Signal Pilot Radio in New Jersey, which I'm not even sure if they play metal anymore because of some controversies. Then it was WDHA, which was 89 point, no. WDHA was 104.3. I had to see if they're still out there because they played rock and metal for a long time. And it was a weird little station at like 88.4. I had to manually wire my own special antenna to get it, because I would hear it in bits and pieces late at night whenever all the other radio signals died down. I hear it during the day, and it played death metal all the time. There wasn't all the person come out, the DJ would say is, and the next song is hell being raised in the garden, murder everyone, and whatever, and just 20 minutes of pure death metal, with an occasional light and load with Slayer or Metallica, or whatever, but 99% death metal. And the last one, however, he mentioned Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. As I age, I appreciate Queensryche, especially the classic lineup in the 80s, more and more. The album he mentioned, Operation Mindcrime, is indeed a great album. There's really only one song on there that's one of my favorite songs. That's Eyes of a Stranger. My favorite Queens album, however, one probably would make my top 10 is Empire, which has Silent Lucidity on it. Among other things. Let's see here. Where are we? Should I call it up? No. Then Silent Lucidity. Is anybody listening? Um, a couple of the classic Queensryche songs. You just think of when you think of a Queensryche song. Um, you know. Okay. So that being said, what are my three favorite albums? What I think the three greatest albums. It didn't happen to be my three favorite albums. Well, the first one, of course, is by my favorite band, Metallica. Metallica is a well-known band. They released this album in 1984. However, it was not the first album that I bought by Metallica. That was Master of Puppets a year or two later, 86 when it came out. I have been listening to Metallica via the radio and recording it on like cassette tapes. I want to say since like 82, 83 when they first dropped No Life Till Leather and the radio station started playing some of the early stuff, and I love Ride the Lightning. There's so many great songs on this album, and I remember even though Master of Puppets as a whole is a better album and has my favorite Metallica song on it, there are a couple of songs on here that are so tied into like my conception of music that this is why to me this is the greatest album of all time. Okay, the best song on the album is "The Call of Cthulhu." They spell it Cthulhu, which supposedly because they don't actually how to spell Cthulhu, which is Chthulhu, but it is based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, The Call of Cthulhu. And I'm not going to go into what the story's about, except obviously the title tells it. But I discovered H.P. Lovecraft because of this song. I heard it, wanted to know more about what the instrumental was talking about. Went out and looked through like 6 different metal fanzines so I could find some articles about it. Begged my mom for like $8 to buy like 3 of them so I could read them over and over again. And found and discovered H.P. Lovecraft, who is one of my favorite authors. Right? I mean, Tolkien is my favorite. Gabriel Kay, and then H.P. Lovecraft and Jim Butcher. Those are pretty much my favorite authors. And I devoured Lovecraft's work because it's just phenomenal horror writing, and it's science fiction horror, contrary to popular belief. And obviously, the next album by Metallica, Master of Puppets, has the thing that should not be on it, which is also a bit, drawn right from Lovecraft. But again, great song. But literally, The Call of Cthulhu got me to H.P. Lovecraft, and it's a beautiful. It's truly like saying something as beautiful is difficult because metal is in a sense partially not meant to be beautiful, like in the way people traditionally mean it. But from a pure musical appreciation point of view, The Call of Cthulhu is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And then of course you have Ride the Lightning, which is just the title track. But moving on this album, For Whom the Bell Tolls led me to another one of my favorites, John Donne's poem For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the whole, a part of the main. If a cloud be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as if a manner of thine friends or thine own were. Every man's loss diminishes me, for I am part of mankind, therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. The poem was written well over 200 years ago now. Hemingway based his novel For Whom the Bell Tolls on it, which hit or miss novel. The part about the love story and the mission for the bridge is great. The part about the Spanish Civil War, politics from the flashbacks, I can't stand. But it led me to some great stuff. And, so that's Fade to Black. I'll probably talk about it more on the next 2 albums, but I've suffered from mental illness in various parts of my life. I've had treatment over the years. I'm in, I guess you would say, remission or control now. But if you ever want to know what those moments of suicidal despair begin to feel like when you suffer them, When I'm saying this as my opinion of my own experience, this is not in any way. If you need mental health, please get the proper treatment. It's very important. I got it just in time. It helped me. But uh, this song was expressed how I was feeling when I was going through those emotions and despair. You know. The next album we'll to talk about is Alice in Chains' "Dirt," which was released in 1992. Um, when this 1990 and this theme is going to come up with this album and the next album I'm going to mention for the early 90s. Okay, um, I had heard Alice in Chains, their first album and their EP from years. I knew some of the songs like "Man in a Box," which is an awesome song, you know, and all, and yeah, they were okay. They had a real good sound. Then this album came out, and I think a combination of because the early 90s when my mental illness really began to rear its head, almost a physical illness, and um, uh, a lot of the songs on this album when I would listen to them just resonated so much with things I was feeling physically or mentally. And those of you who were alive, if you remember MTV at the time, Alice in Chains dominated MTV with like everything they released from this album. It was all over the radio. It even made mainstream radio play. This was their biggest album. Um, and if if I hadn't had those songs on Ride the Lightning that had strong meanings to me as individuals, this would be the number one album. This is probably the number one album I could put on today and listen to in order or any order over and over again. There are a couple of bands I'll sometimes play for 2 or 3 hours at a time, like Metallica, Alice in Chains, Opeth, to name three examples. But this album, I could, in my player that I've ripped all my music to, or pull out the CD from storage. I could put it in there and just play it from beginning to end and recognize every song as soon as the first couple of notes go on and resonate with all of it. In particular, the songs Angry Chair and Wood, they did MTV Unplugged with Alice in Chains, which is the best MTV Unplugged. The versions, those versions there of Wood and Angry Chair are haunting, truly, truly haunting. This was also the last Alice in Chains album that the original bassist, Mike Starr, was fired / left the band, however you want to consider it. And, they had one more album before Lane died, which was a good album, but not as good as this. Even though arguably Mike Inez was a better bass player, I'm not sure he was a better musical creator than Starr was. And my last candidate for here, again, you're going to hear my theme of mental illness. I'd always listen to Slayer on and off through the 90s, rather the 80s. Oh, that's a Slayer song. That's pretty cool. Blah, blah, rock on. You hear a song. But I never really gone out of my way to buy Slayer albums or. I wouldn't turn off the radio if one of my friends popped the album in. I listened to it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it or buy it. And in the early 90s, as I mentioned, my physical and mental health getting really bad and consuming my life. I heard it. I was listening to WSOU, and they played a double shot of Slayer. They played Seasons in the Abyss and Dead Skin Mask. And I think it just resonated with me, especially Seasons in the Abyss, with what I was feeling for the last couple of months, and honestly what I felt for the next 8 years. It took me a long time to get the proper help I needed to deal with this things up under control. It just resonated with me. And Seasons in the Abyss, if you ever want to listen to what it sounded like to be in the throes of physical mental illness, that's Seasons in the Abyss. And then Dead Skin Mask is truly haunting. It's about Ed Gein, and it's it's what if you want to know what evil, if you want a theme song for evil to want to know what these evil bastards are like, listen to Dead Skin Mask. So those are my comments on Chris Adler's choices and my three choices. If anyone listens to this and wants to drop some comments on their three choices below, let me know because maybe something I hadn't heard of or considered, and I'll go out there and listen to another album I haven't heard for years. Thank you. If you liked it, hit a like. If you didn't, hit the dislike. I welcome either. Give me a comment if you feel like it. This has been Unbearable 73. That was Chris Adler's 3 greatest albums and my 3 greatest albums, and I am out of here. Thank you.